5. The last time we read, we were talking about the olive tree vineyard where Jesus Christ was the Lord of the vineyard. And then he also had a servant, which was a prophet, because he helped. And the prophets help the Lord now, too.
Exactly. And we were reading about things that were happening before the life of Jesus Christ, so the Old Testament times. And we were basically, the prophet Zenos is prophesying the same things that Isaiah was prophesying about: the destruction of the northern kingdoms of Israel, the lost 10 tribes of Israel, and the destruction of the southern kingdoms of Judah. And why was the house of Israel destroyed?
Because they were being...
And their land was given over to the
Gentiles.
The Gentiles, right? But now we're going to continue this course of events, and we're going to read about things that reflect more during the life of Christ now.
And it came to pass that a long time passed away, and the Lord of the vineyard said unto his servant, Come, let us go down into the vineyard, that we may labor in the vineyard.
Yeah, about how many years was it from the time of the destruction of Israel to the birth of Jesus Christ?
A lot. 600.
About 600 years. That is correct. Is that a long time that has passed away according to this verse? It sure has. And also in the parable, in the first part, it said, was all of the people of Israel destroyed, or were there righteous parts that were kind of spread throughout the world?
Righteous parts spread out.
Yeah, but then a long time passes, and now we're getting into what the scriptures call the meridian of time, which is the time when Jesus Christ was born on the earth.
And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard and also the servant went down into the vineyard to labor. And it came to pass that the servant said unto his master, Behold, look here, behold the tree.
So in the prior verses, the Lord of the vineyard was sending servants. But what did we just read in this verse?
The servant's calling him.
Wow, so the Lord himself is now what?
Serving
in the vineyard. So he's not just sending his servants now, he himself is there ministering in his vineyard.
It came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard looked and beheld the tree, in which the wild olive branches had been grafted, and had sprung forth and began to bear fruit. And beheld that it was good, and the fruit thereof was like unto the natural fruit.
So what law were they living before the law of Christ?
The law of Moses.
The law of Moses, and that was meant to what?
Prepare
them. And the Lord of the vineyard is looking, and he's like, are these people now prepared for the fullness of my gospel, the law of Christ? Yeah, he's saying things are looking much better. It seems like they're ready for my higher law. And he said unto the servant, Behold, the branches of the wild tree have taken hold of the moisture of the fruit thereof. So many people are starting to accept the gospel and make better choices. That the root thereof hath brought forth much strength. And because of the much strength of the root thereof, the wild branches have brought forth tame fruits. People are making better choices. Now, if we had not grafted in these branches, the tree thereof would have perished. And now, behold, I shall lay up much fruit, which the tree thereof hath brought forth, and the fruit thereof I shall lay up against the season unto mine own self. So, during Christ's ministry, did he establish his church on the earth? Did everyone accept it?
No.
Correct. But were there a lot of people who accepted it? Yes, there were. And then he sent his apostles to teach who?
Gentiles.
The Gentiles. So the wild olive trees were joining the root of the gospel through the teaching of who?
The apostles.
The apostles. So we're seeing that the church is getting established, it's rolling forth, things are pretty good.
And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard said unto the servant, Come, let us go to the nethermost part of the vineyard. And behold, if the natural branches of the tree have not brought forth much fruit also, that I may lay up of the fruit thereof against the season unto mine own self.
So now they're going to see how other groups of people are doing here, whether or not everyone's accepting the gospel or only some people are. It's a different nether.
And it came to pass that they went forth whither the master had hid the natural branches of the tree. And he said unto the servant, Behold these. And he beheld the first, that it had brought forth much fruit. And he beheld also that it was good. And he said unto the servant, Take of the fruit thereof, and lay it up against the season, that I may preserve it unto mine own self. For behold, said he, this long time have I nourished it, and it hath brought forth much fruit. When did Jesus go teach the Nephites?
After his resurrection.
After his resurrection. And he also had servants there too, just like he had his apostles in Jerusalem, because then once he died, his apostles could go continue teaching his word. So then when he visited the Nephites, he also chose people for when he went back with Heavenly Father. These people could stay and continue teaching the Nephites. And I'm sure he probably did that with other scattered tribes that he went to visit that we don't know about right now.
Were there a lot of righteous people among the Nephites? How long were the Nephites righteous for after Christ came? About 100, 150 years or so after the glorious visitation of Christ. But was there a lot of righteousness here in the Americas after Christ came?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's saying there was a lot of people in Israel, here, and throughout the world who were accepting his church and his gospel taught from his apostles and disciples throughout the world.
And it came to pass that the servant said unto his master, How comest thou hither to plant this tree with branch of the tree? For behold, it was the forest sprawling out of the land of thy vineyard.
So the servant's surprised, like, why have you chosen to put people in these different areas? Some of these areas aren't really all that great. It's really poor ground to be establishing these things. There's a lot of wickedness. Why would you try to make your church grow in such a wicked place? And the Lord of the vineyard said unto him, Counsel me not. I knew that it was a poor spot of ground. Wherefore I said unto thee, I have nourished it this long time, and thou beholdest that it hath brought forth much fruit. So it doesn't matter that it was a poor spot. Have many people in this area accepted my gospel? Yes. So should the servant be asking questions?
No. And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard said unto his servant, Look hither, behold, I have planted another branch of the tree also, and thou knowest that this spot of ground is far than the first. But behold, the tree I have nourished it this long time, and it hath brought forth much fruit. Therefore gather it, and lay it up against the season, that I may preserve it unto my own self.
So sometimes we might be in a situation in life where we just feel like it's too hard. Nothing good can come of it. Things are just too bad. I don't have the tools, the resources, the stuff I need, and nothing can make it better. That we are literally stuck in the poorest spot of ground in the whole world. But what are we learning from these verses here?
The Lord helps you?
Is the Lord able to make things grow even in the poorest spot of ground?
Yeah.
He sure is. So it doesn't matter how hard things are, who can always help us grow no matter how hard things get?
The Lord.
Jesus, the Lord, right?
And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard said again unto his servant, Look hither, and behold another branch also, which I have planted. Behold, that I have nourished it also, and it hath brought forth fruit.
What are some of the ways the Lord nourishes us and nourishes his people? How does he do that? Scriptures, yeah.
General conference.
Conference talks, yeah, where we get taught more, going to church, and we can kind of nourish each other. Right? What else?
Temple.
The temple. What is the gift that he gives us that helps
Holy
us?
Ghost.
What else?
The Holy
The
Ghost.
Holy Ghost, right? So God gives us all these things to nourish us and help us grow. But like a plant, if you don't give it what it needs to be nourished, what's going to happen to that plant?
It's gonna die.
It's going to die, right? And so is our faith and our testimony. If we're not nourishing it with these things, then it can't really grow, right? But if the Lord is with us and we're using these things that he's given us, our faith and our testimony can grow.
And he said unto the servant, Look hither, and behold the last. Behold, this have I planted in a good spot of ground. And I have nourished it this long time, and only a part of the tree hath brought forth tame fruit, and the other part of the tree hath brought forth wild fruit. Behold, I have nourished this tree like unto the others.
So you can have people who aren't members, who later get taught the gospel, join the church, and become very active, faithful members of the church. And then you have people who were born in a good spot of ground, meaning what? They're born into what?
Church.
The church. They have it their whole lives, and what do a lot of them do?
Leave.
They leave and don't gain the faith and testimony, right? So it shows it doesn't matter so much where we start, it matters what we do. And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard said unto the servant, Pluck off the branches that have not brought forth good fruit, and cast them into the fire. So whether you're born into the church or you're not a member of the church, if you're not living and accepting the gospel, you get to be with the Lord again? No?
But behold, the serpent said unto him, Let us prune it and dig about it and nourish it a little longer, that perhaps it may bring forth good fruit unto thee, that thou canst lay it up against the seed.
So even though there's people who aren't following the gospel, are these servants of the Lord wanting to stop? Or do they want to keep trying to teach?
We want to keep trying.
Keep trying, right?
And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard and the servant of the Lord of the vineyard did nourish all the fruit of the vineyard.
Is it going to work or not work? Let's see. So that's 28. So that's the second visit. And now we're getting into verses 29 to 49, which is the third visit.
And it came to pass that a long time had passed away, and the Lord of the vineyard said unto his servant, Come, let us go down into the vineyard, that we may labor again in the vineyard. For behold, the time draweth near, and the end soon cometh. Wherefore I must lay up fruit against the season unto my own self.
So now we're starting the third visit of the Lord. Let's see what happens with this third visit. So this is after the life of Christ, his apostles, he establishes his church. We're getting into the next period of things now. And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard and the servant went down into the vineyard, and they came to the tree whose natural branches had been broken off, and the wild branches had been grafted in, and behold, all sorts of fruit did cover the tree. So do we have a whole mix of righteous and wicked going on here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard did taste of the fruit, every sort according to its number. And the Lord of the vineyard said, Behold, this long time hath he nourished this tree, and I have laid up unto myself against the season much fruit.
So we've had a lot of good up to this point. Let's see though about this new fruit that we have.
But behold, this time it hath brought forth much fruit, and there is none of it which is good.
Oh.
And behold, there are all kinds of bad fruit, and it profiteth me nothing, notwithstanding all our labor. And now it grieveth me that I should lose this tree.
So even though he came himself to the earth, performed his sacrifice and his atonement, gave his church and his gospel, sent his servants forth ministering, eventually what happened to all those servants?
They died.
Of natural causes?
No.
No, they were destroyed. They were killed by wicked people. And God took his church away from the earth because the people didn't want it anymore. And instead, they created their own what?
Church.
And was it just one church that they created, or was it a wide assortment of churches on the earth?
Why?
Yeah, so that's what we're seeing. There was all kinds of fruit, meaning there were all kinds of what on the earth? Churches. But what is the Lord saying about all these churches that existed during this time?
Yeah, bad.
That none of them
So it profiteth me nothing, which
Yeah.
means they're not teaching the things that he taught when he was on the earth, and that he had given his apostles the authority to teach either. The people are not teaching these things in these churches.
So how do you think the Lord of the vineyard is feeling about his vineyard right now? Pretty sad, right? And especially after all that he's done for his vineyard.
And the Lord of the vineyard said unto the servant, What shall we do unto the tree, that I may preserve again good fruit thereof unto myself?
All this wickedness in the world, all these false churches, this is the period of the what?
Apostasy. The
Great apostasy. And the servant's like, what on earth are we going to do
What does mine own self?
to bring it to myself? Remember, we talked about this isn't just a gathering to the church, it's us being gathered to who? To the Lord, right? He doesn't want us all spread out. He wants us all close to what? Into him, right? We're a family, right? And he wants his family close. And the servant said unto his master, Behold, because thou didst graft in the branches of the wild olive tree, they have nourished the roots, that they are alive and they have not perished. Wherefore thou beholdest that they are yet good. So there's still hope, right? Even during the great apostasy, who is the source of the gospel? Jesus Christ. During the great apostasy, were there still Christians on the earth?
Yes.
So was there still the basic root of the gospel? What book of scripture did they have?
The Bible.
The Bible. And how come that couldn't resolve all of the different churches that were on the earth?
Because you need another book.
You need another witness, and also what had happened to parts of the Bible. It got changed over time, right? The details were missing, which is why it was creating a lot of confusion, but was the basic root that Jesus is our Savior. Was that still on the earth?
Yes.
And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard said unto his servant, The tree profiteth me nothing, and the roots thereof profit me nothing, so long as it shall bring forth evil fruit.
So yeah, they profess my name. Yes, they know I'm their Lord, but what? They're still being what? Wicked. So can the Lord have wicked people in his kingdom?
No.
If they profess his name and say we love Jesus and then we go do wicked things, do we get to live with Jesus again?
No.
No, they draw near to me with their lips, but their hearts are what? Far from me.
Nevertheless, I know that the roots are good, and for mine own purpose I have preserved them, and because of their much strength they have hitherto brought forth from the wild branches good fruit.
Is he going to give the world a chance?
Yeah.
He sure is.
But behold, the wild branches have grown and have overrun the roots thereof. And because that the wild branches have overcome the roots thereof, have brought forth much evil fruit. Because thou hast brought forth so much evil fruit, thou beholdest that it beginneth to perish, and soon become ripened, that it may be cast to the fire, so that we should do something for it to preserve it.
So what on earth can the Lord do to save the world from destruction?
Give him the gospel.
Give him the gospel again. And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard said unto his servant, Let us go down into the nethermost parts of the vineyard, and behold, if the natural branches have also brought forth evil fruit. So things in Israel aren't looking too good. They've fallen into apostasy. Hey, let's go to the Americas. Let's see how they're doing over there.
And it came to pass that they went down into the nethermost parts of the vineyard, and it came to pass that they beheld that the fruit of the natural branches had become corrupt. Also, yea, first and the second, and also the last, and they had all become corrupt.
So what had happened here?
They have been corrupted.
So this great apostasy was spread through what?
The world.
The whole world.
And the wild fruit of the last had overcome that part of the tree which brought forth good fruit, even that the branch had withered away and died.
What's the wild group of people that overcame
The good
the good people to the point that they were completely gone?
The Lamanites.
The Lamanites took over who?
The Nephites.
The Nephites. And how many Nephites were left?
9
None. They completely withered away and what?
died.
Died.
And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard left.
Wait. What?
Wait, what does wept mean?
cried.
It's pretty sad. Seeing his church destroyed in Israel, his church destroyed in the Americas, wickedness abounding. The Lord of the vineyard looked upon his vineyard and what? Because he's the one who suffered for all those things in the hopes that people would be righteous. And instead he's saying the opposite for many, many years.
And he said unto the servant, Lord, could I have done more for my vineyard?
Imagine Jesus crying and asking, is there anything else I could have done? As like his sacrifice was enough, but yet here he's like, what more could I have done?
I mean, Christ knows all things.
Yeah.
So he knows he did all he could do. And is there anything more Jesus could have done to
No.
make things better? Whose responsibility was it?
Ours.
Ours. And even though he knows he did his part and that the responsibility's on us, he still feels what? Sad, right? When people aren't receiving the blessing that he wants to give us. Behold, I knew that all the fruit of the vineyard, save it were these, had become corrupted. And now these which have once brought forth good fruit have also become corrupted. So when Christ established his church, if you think of all the people on the planet, was it a large number of people who were actually faithful followers of his church?
No.
Actually, no, right? And if you look at all of the human beings on the planet, it's actually just a very small percentage who are humble, faithful followers of Christ. And that's what he's saying here. The small number of people who actually were following, now even them are what? Corrupted. And now these things which have once brought forth good fruit have also become corrupted, and now all the trees of my vineyard are good for nothing, save it be to be hewn down and cast into the fire. Just the widespread apostasy.
And behold, this last whose branch hath withered away. I did plant a good spot of ground, yea, even that which was choice unto me above all other parts of the land of my vineyard.
So was Israel and all the wickedness there, was that a good spot of ground for his church to grow? No. So what happened pretty quick to the church in Israel?
It was destroyed.
It was destroyed because the apostles were killed and God had to take it away quickly because of his justice for all the wickedness that was there. But the church was still going pretty strong where?
In the Americas.
In the Americas. You know, there was 100 years of just faithful righteousness here on the earth, which makes sense because they got a visit from the resurrected Lord and were more prepared for that. But even though he lost his church in Israel, he's like, hey, at least I got my people still in the Americas, right? They're doing good, and I've planted them in a good spot of ground. I came to them in my resurrected body. They couldn't have had a better situation for my gospel. And even then,
His branch withered away.
even that branch in the Americas withered away. It's hard reading through the history of the gospel because there's a lot of people making really bad choices. Right? How's it feel to kind of read this? Can we get to a happy part? Yeah. But this is what it was like during the Great Apostasy. Even though Christ had done so much, they were still falling away into wickedness.
And thou beheldest that I also cut down that which cumbered this spot of ground, that I might plant this tree in the stead thereof.
How did they describe the land of the Jaredites when they found it? What did they see?
I was like, oh, the land of desolation.
Yeah, and they're just kind of remains covered
Yeah.
and scattered throughout.
Yeah.
And he said, I've already cut down a tree in this part of the land once, and now here I am, what? About to do it
Again.
all over again with his Nephites. Oh, that's sad.
And thou beheldest that a part thereof brought forth good fruit, and part thereof brought forth wild fruit, because I plucked not the branches thereof, and cast them into the fire. Behold, they have overcome the good branches that it has withered away.
Yeah, so there were righteous people here, but they got overcome by all the wicked people. Now behold, notwithstanding all the care which we have taken of my vineyard, the trees thereof have become corrupted, that they bring forth no good fruit. And these I had hoped to preserve, to have laid up fruit thereof against the season unto mine own self. I was hoping to be able to bring them into me. But behold, they have become like unto the wild olive tree, and they are of no worth but to be hewn down and cast into the fire. And it grieveth me that I should lose them. Pretty sad, huh? Yeah.
But what could I have done more in my vineyard?
Wow, how many times has he asked that question now?
A lot.
A lot, huh?
Have I slackened mine hand that I have not nourished it? Nay, I have nourished it, and I have digged about it, and I have pruned it, and I have thumbed it, and I have stretched forth mine hand almost all the day long, and the end draweth nigh, and it grieveth me that I should hew down all the trees of my vineyard and cast them into the fire. They should be burned. Who is that has corrupted my vineyard?
So here again, he's like saying, I've done everything, and like, this is all I've done.
I've given them everything they need to grow and draw closer to me. And still, they go another direction. And who is it that has corrupted his vineyard?
The wicked.
Satan.
And not just Satan, but those who wanted to go along with what Satan's temptations were. It's not Satan that has power, it's the people who choose to follow him that give him power. You have the Lord's church, and the abominable church has corrupted the Lord's vineyard.
And then hope took it down.
And it came to pass that the servant said unto his master, Is it not the loftiness of thy vineyard? Have not the branches thereof overcome the roots which are good? And because the branches have overcome the roots thereof, behold, they grew faster than the strength of the roots, taking strength unto themselves. Behold, I say, is not this the cause that the trees of thy vineyard have become corrupted. What corrupted
Their pride.
their pride?
Instead of giving strength to the root in the gospel, they put all the strength and gave all the credit to themselves, right? Taking strength into themselves. We don't need God. We don't need the Lord of the vineyard. We'll take care of this ourselves.
And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard said unto the servant, Let us go to and hew down the trees of the vineyard, and cast them into the fire, that they shall not cumber the ground of my vineyard, for I have done all, or could I have done more for my vineyard.
So the Lord's ready to just go down and do what in the world?
Take it away.
Wipe it all out, right? But behold, the servant said unto the Lord of the vineyard, Spare it a little longer. So is the Lord gonna bring destruction on the land, or is he gonna spare his hand? We'll find out in our next reading. Nice job, guys.
Click the subscribe button. Leave a like.
Ring that bell and keep studying the scriptures.
Have you ever did this dance? It's cookie.
Melissa, give me a